Ray Salgado hadn't slept properly in weeks. Every creak in the walls, every muffled voice outside his apartment, every gust of wind brushing the blinds, it all felt like a countdown. He kept the lights dim, the curtains shut, and a Glock 19 taped under the kitchen table. No one really left a mess. 13 alive. He knew that, but he had tried anyway. 6 months earlier, he made a deal. A dirty, desperate, survival-driven deal with the feds. In exchange for a reduced sentence and relocation, Ray gave them names, big names. He mapped out smuggling routes, described the layout of stash houses, detailed the inner circles of the clique he once ran within East L.A. It felt heroic for a moment, like he was doing the right thing after years of doing wrong. But now, it just felt like a suicide letter he hadn't finished signing. The Witness Protection Program was supposed to give him a new life, new name, new ID, new face if he wanted, but Ray was stubborn. He kept the name. He kept the face. He even stayed in the same damn state. Why? Because of Lucia. She wasn't just an ex. She was the one person who ever saw past the gang ink and the reputation. The only reason he ever wanted out in the first place. She still lived here. Same neighborhood. Still worked at the diner near Eastlake. And that was Ray's mistake. His only request to the feds had been clear. Keep her out of this. They agreed, but they didn't watch her. And now they had found her. And by extension, him. It started with small signs. First, the graffiti on the wall by the liquor store. MS Por Vida, spray painted fresh in black and red. Then, the weird black SUV that sat idling across the street every few nights. And finally, the message he found stuck to his windshield. Tu hablaste. Ahora escucha el silencio. You talked. Now listen to the silence. Ray knew what that meant. Silence was their way. You disappear. No sound. No story. Just pieces. He checked his apartment for bugs, installed cheap surveillance cameras, and moved Lucia to a friend's safe house. But none of it mattered. The moment he broke the rules of WITSEC by making contact, they stopped protecting him. The agents gave him a warning, not backup. A reminder, you violate terms, you're on your own. So he was. Now, every night was a waiting game. He slept with jeans on, boots by the door, a backpack with cash and 2 passports in the closet. And yet, as prepared as he thought he wasn't ready for what came next. It was a Tuesday, just past 2 a.m., a thud, then another, not loud but deliberate, not the random noise of a neighbor dropping something. These were measured footsteps, close, right outside the door. Ray grabbed the Glock, heart hammering. He moved like muscle memory, crouched by the kitchen counter, peeking through the edge of the curtain. 3 silhouettes, one tall, broad, one smaller, possibly female. The third stood with a limp, a dragging foot. Ray froze. He recognized the drag. El Mudo, a legend in his own circle, a silent killer. Never spoke, never missed. Known for leaving his victims cut into sections, head, arms, torso, each piece wrapped in plastic like meat. Ray's mind raced. They found him. They really found him. He stepped back, slowly, careful not to creak the floor. But the doorbell rang. Once, twice, then silence, then a whisper, a voice, low and raspy through the crack of the door. You know, open up, Raton. Ray didn't answer. He didn't breathe. A flash of movement. A dark object slammed against the door. Then 3 rapid knocks. Then nothing. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. When Ray finally dared to move, he edged toward the door and peered through the peephole. Nothing. He opened the door an inch. On the welcome mat, a plastic bag. Inside, a single human ear still fresh, pierced with a gold cross-shaped stud. Ray knew the earring. It belonged to Eric, a former MS member who had flipped years ago and disappeared. The message was clear. You're next. Ray didn't sleep after that night. The ear on his doorstep had done its job, cut through the last shreds of illusion he had about being safe. This wasn't a warning. This was a statement. They were here, watching, choosing the moment. They wanted him paralyzed, unraveling. MS-13 always collected, but they liked their debts paid in fear before blood. By sunrise, Ray had already burned every paper in the apartment. IDs, notes, SIM cards, even the old photos of Lucia, he kept hidden in a shoebox. He packed 2 duffel bags, one with money and weapons, the other with water, burner phones, and clothes. Then he stared at the door for 15 minutes. He had one rule growing up: never run unless you're chased. But this wasn't running. This was surviving. Still, as soon as he stepped out, he felt it. Eyes. On the roof? Across the street? He couldn't see anyone, but it didn't matter. Paranoia wasn't a glitch. It was instinct, especially for someone who'd once been a guy doing hunting. He took side streets, cut through a mechanic's yard, ditched his phone in a construction dumpster. Every stoplight was a calculation. Every car in the rear view was a maybe. He drove out of East L.A., across 2 counties, then down a forgotten back road that led to the one place he swore never to return: Tio Armando's ranch. Armando had been in the business longer than Ray had been alive. Smuggler, fence war survivor, never officially in MS, but connected, deeply, and if anyone could give him a shot at disappearing for good, it was the old man. Ray parked far from the main house and walked the last half-mile on foot, through dry weeds and barbed wire. The place looked abandoned. Same as always: broken shutters, rusted van in the driveway, cows that hadn't been milked in years. But when Ray knocked 3 times, then paused and knocked once more, the door creaked open, and there he was, Armando, gray beard tangled like roots, eyes sharp as razors, holding a sawed-off shotgun like it was an extension of his soul. "You brought death with you, didn't you?" he asked, voice like gravel. Ray nodded once. "Come inside, before it smells you." Inside, the house was dark, humid, full of dust and tobacco smoke. Maps hung on the walls. A CB radio buzzed faintly. The kitchen table was covered in old Bill's gun oil and a machete with a blood-stained handle. Ray sat. Armando poured tequila. "Who's after you?" Ray didn't answer at first. Then, barely above a whisper, "La Mara." The old man didn't flinch. "You flipped?" Ray nodded. "They know where I am." Armando stared at him for a long moment, then looked out the window. "Then we don't have time." Within minutes, he had a burner phone out, calling someone only known as Coyote, then another call to a woman named Reyna, who could forge passports like artwork. Ray didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He just watched as his uncle moved with urgency, quick but controlled, like he had prepared for this moment long ago. But even with the plan forming, the pressure didn't ease. Ray felt it in his chest like an infection. Something wasn't right. He should have been relieved. Instead, he felt cornered. That night, while Armando slept, Ray walked the perimeter with a flashlight and his Glock. The breeze carried a strange silence, too perfect, like the land was holding its breath. Then he saw it. A cigarette still burning, wedged under a tree near the fence. Fresh, still warm. Whoever had been there was close and watching. Ray raised his weapon, scanned the darkness, heard nothing until pop, pop, pop gunshots tore through the air, which splintered beside his head. He dove behind a stone wall, breathing hard, heart hammering. More shots. From the trillion, control bursts. Not amateurs. They had found him. And worse, they weren't shooting to kill. They were flushing him out. Ray hit the dirt hard, rolling to the left as bullets chewed up the dry earth where he'd just been standing. His Glock was tight in his grip, hard hammering like a jackhammer in his chest. Whoever was out there wasn't playing. These weren't warning shots. They were trained, coordinated, and hunting. MS-13 didn't send just anyone for jobs like this. They had specialists. Los silenciadores. The silencers. No tags, no posts, no flash. Just ghosts in the dark. Former military. Some say even ex-FARC. Trained in jungle warfare and blood rituals. When MS wanted you gone and wanted you to suffer, these were the ones they called. And Ray knew. They were here for him. He crawled on his elbows behind an overturned feed trough, metal rusted but solid. Every move was calculated. These guys waited for noise, footsteps, branches, breath, anything that gave a position away. Ray had hunted like this before. Now he was the hunted. In the distance, 3 faint whistles echoed, sharp, rhythmic. Signals. They weren't alone. Ray peeked over the trough for a half-second. A flash, just a flicker, of a silhouette near the barn. Another near the well. They were flanking. He reached into his belt and pulled out the emergency flare. One spark, and this whole place would light up like a beacon. He didn't want light. He wanted chaos. Instead, he reached back toward the shed. His fingers brushed something cold, a shovel. Not a gun, but steel was steel. He yanked it toward him and waited. The first man came silently, moving with the crouch of a predator. He had a blade, not a gun, held backward, military style. Ray didn't think. As the man passed, Ray swung the shovel in a wide arc crack. The edge caught the man's temple. He dropped without a sound, eyes already rolling back. Ray took his knife and slipped into the shadows. One down. The second was smarter. Heard the impact. Came faster. Ray ducked behind a bale of hay, breathing slow. He heard the footfall, just one step off rhythm. Ray lunged. The two collided in the dark. A flash of teeth. Grunts. Fists. The man slashed at Ray's ribs, grazing him, drawing blood. Ray twisted, slammed the man's face into the wooden wall behind them. Once. Twice. The third time there was a crunch. Then silence. 2 down. But Ray didn't celebrate, because the third was gone, and Armando was still in the house. Ray bolted. He sprinted through the dry grass, chest burning, ears ringing. He could smell smoke, burning oil. The house was in sight, and so was a figure standing at the door, holding something long and black. Ray dropped just as the muzzle flashed. A bullet whizzed past his ear. He rolled, came up to one knee, aimed, and fired twice. The figure staggered, dropped to one knee, then collapsed. Ray didn't stop running. He kicked the door open. Inside, Armando was on the floor alive, bleeding from the arm, but conscious. "They got in through the back," he grunted, clutching a pistol. "I took one. Maybe 2. Ray knelt beside him. "You're good." Armando nodded through gritted teeth. "Go. You need to finish this." Ray hesitated. "Tio." "Raymondo," he said, eyes sharp. "If you stop now, they keep coming. They won't stop unless they believe you're dead, or they are." Ray stood, blood dripping down his side. He was done running. He dragged the third man's body into the front yard, tied him upright to the fence post, just like the gang used to do with traitors. Cut his sleeve to reveal the black hand tattoo, proof he was MS. Then he took the man's phone. One message, to a number labeled only with 3 skull emojis. "He's dead. Took 2 of us. I'm bleeding out." He tossed the phone onto the corpse's lap and walked away. It wouldn't stop them forever, but maybe it would buy him time. Maybe. Ray spent the next 3 days in silence. He changed cars, destroyed the fake documents, and swapped SIM cards twice. The safe house in Stockton seemed secure enough, an old cabin hidden among tall trees, powered only by a noisy generator and a landline with no caller ID. But Ray knew nothing was ever truly safe. The face of the last man haunted him, not because of the blood, but because of his expression, a mixture of fear and fanaticism. The silencers didn't beg. They died in silence. And that meant only one thing. MS-13 was still sending believers, still investing, still wanted his head. Ray was staring out the living room window when the landline rang. A secure line. Only one person had that number. "It's the Padre." Ray froze. The code name was cruelly ironic. The only informant still embedded inside the gang structure. The only one still feeding the feds information, and someone who would only call an emergency. "They know you survive, Ray." Who told them? There's footage. Drone cameras. Someone at the ranch filmed the end of the ambush. "You're on it," dragging the body. Ray closed his eyes. It was over. There's more. The Padre's voice trembled. They put a bounty on your head, a number I've never seen before. 3 factions accepted the contract. One of them is from El Salvador. Ray's throat went dry. This wasn't just revenge. This was a message, and he was the example. I need extraction, a new identity, anything. Silence. There's no extraction. You're burned. Even the feds don't want your name in their files. You're on your own, Ray. Click. That night he didn't sleep. His thoughts bounced between paranoia and fury. Every rustling leaf had him reaching for his gun. Every shadow felt like it had eyes. Then, around 3 a.m., he heard it. A dry knock. On the back door. The weakest door in the house. He moved quietly behind the fridge, gun in hand. Another knock. Then, silence. No voices. No flashlights. Just breathing. Low. Controlled. They were here. Ray took a deep breath. He moved toward the kitchen switch and killed all the lights. Darkness swallowed everything. He wrapped a black cloth over his flashlight and turned it on just enough to see the hallway. No sound. No movement. Until something slid under the door. An envelope. Ray waited 30 seconds. Then 30 more. He opened it with the tip of his knife. Inside was a single photo. Of him. Sleeping. In that very house. That very bed. Timestamp. 2 nights ago. On the back, 3 words handwritten. We are inside. Ray's pulse went wild. It was one thing to be hunted. Another to be watched, infiltrated, filmed, without ever noticing. They weren't chasing him anymore. They were playing with him. Humiliating. Injecting fear piece by piece, until he begged to die. Ray locked the house down. Killed the lights. Killed the generator. Buried the phone. And for the first time since prison, he dug out the old radio, the one he and Armando used back in the day. It only worked via Morse code. He tapped the message. Plan R. Now. It took 2 full minutes, but the reply came. Confirmed. Get the axe. Ray lifted a floorboard. Underneath, wrapped in plastic, was a hatchet, sealed with the letter R. It had never been used. It was part of an old protocol. If everything went wrong, disappear. But take part of hell with you. That night, Ray didn't run. He started hunting. By the next night, the cabin was empty. Not abandoned, cleared. Everything Ray didn't need had been burned. Hard drives melted. Bloodstained clothes turned to ash. Even the bed sheets were gone. He left only what was essential. The axe, a small duffel, a bottle of whiskey, and an old notebook with names. The names that mattered. He didn't trust digital anymore. Didn't trust anyone. Ray walked out of the cabin dressed in black. No insignias, no phone, no GPS. Just instinct and rage. The silence of the forest wasn't calming. It was loud, deafening. He moved like a shadow, the axe strapped to his back, a pistol in his belt. But he wasn't running. He was headed to Modesto. There, hidden beneath the shell in an abandoned auto garage, was a known MS-13 recon post. Not a safe house. A trap, a place where they tested loyalty, ran interrogations, or made people vanish. Ray had been there once before. Back then, he was known as Coyote, the man who transported bodies without leaving blood behind. He remembered the cold tile floor, the soundproof walls, the smell of bleach and burnt rubber. He also remembered who ran it. Mendoza, a low-ranking foot soldier turned interrogator. Sadist, coward, but loyal, the worst kind. Ray knew if he wanted real answers, he'd have to go through Mendoza. The garage wasn't guarded. That was the point. The danger was inside, not outside. He crept through the side entrance, past shattered car parts and rusting engines. The smell was the same. The lights were flickering, the kind of flicker that messes with your timing in a fight. Ray moved quickly, down the hall, past the pit, toward the basement. 3 steps from the last door, he paused. Laughter. 2 voices. One faint, one familiar. Mendoza. Ray kicked the door in. The first man barely turned before the axe split his skull. The second, Mendoza, tried to reach for a knife, but Ray's boot met his face, smashing him into the wall. Blood spilled like ink across the concrete. Ray didn't speak. He tied Mendoza to a rusted chair, wrist behind the back, ankles bolted with steel wire. The old way. Then he opened the duffel. Inside, salt, a burner phone, and a live feed transmitter. Mendoza spat blood. "You think this will stop it?" he said, laughing through broken teeth. "You're already dead, Ray." Ray didn't flinch. He lifted the axe, then paused. "What did you do to Padre?" Ray asked coldly. Mendoza blinked. "Padre's dead." "You tell me." A flicker of fear crossed Mendoza's eyes. "You were the leak, weren't you?" Ray smiled, just barely. "I want names, places, how they found the cabin. I want everything." It took 20 minutes. Mendoza didn't scream. He didn't need to. Ray worked silently, methodically. When the man finally talked, it all made sense. The video, the photo, the envelope, all traced back to a cleaner team out of Honduras, contracted by the U.S. wing of MS-13. Specialists, ghosts, and they were still watching. They'd been following not just Ray, but anyone he ever spoke to, including Padre. Mendoza broke at the mention of the code phrase Green Chapel. That was their hub. An abandoned church near Fresno, turned into a digital kill room. Cameras, servers, torture gear. Padre had been lured there 3 nights ago. Disappeared ever since. Ray didn't kill Mendoza quickly, but when it was done, he placed a man's head on the car lift, lit a flare, and walked out as the fire consumed the garage. It took him 5 hours to reach the Green Chapel. By then, the feds had started tracing the flames. Mendoza was a known associate. His death would raise alarms. But Ray didn't care anymore. He was beyond redemption. This wasn't about the feds. This was about the message. Ray stood outside the church, wind howling around the empty stained glass. He tapped the burner phone once. The live stream activated, sending footage directly to several Fed inboxes, including his former handlers. Then he entered. The Green Chapel was worse than he imagined. Chains dangled from the rafters, blood on the pews. The altar transformed into a steel table. And there, in the back, Padre's body, skinned, hung upside down, face barely recognizable. Ray felt something crack inside him. No more hiding. He placed the axe on the altar, turned the camera toward him, and spoke. "My name is Raymond Cortez. I worked with the feds. I betrayed MS-13. I'd do it again. If you're watching this, know one thing. I'm not running anymore. I'm waiting." And with that, he sat down, gun in hand, 1 bullet left, waiting for them.